Hello and welcome to another episode of Who Knew in the Moment, the podcast. I'm your host, Phil Friedrich, and today I am honored to be with Jeremy Barker. Jeremy is the founder of Murphy Doors, and one thing that I think you're going to hear in his journey is no matter how many times it seems improbable, if you keep going, the results you're looking for will come. So, Jeremy, thanks so much for being on.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yes. So to start your journey, and I'm sure there's things in the childhood that start out, but you decided to go to Utah for school. And after kind of a year there, you realize maybe this isn't the right move for me. So talk a little about, that decision to go to college and then what it was about the college experience that just didn't seem quite right for your long-term path.
Yep. So, pardon my throat today. First and foremost, to everyone, I apologize. Woke up with no voice. So, regardless, I was born and raised in Utah to
Yeah.
a French mother, and my dad was an adopted guy from Italy. So, his born name, I guess it was Gabusi. So we're adopted into the Barker family, which is great. I own that name. But needless to say, got through high school. I was kind of a trouble kid. Like I started, my mom sent me to France, for the summer, thinking that would be a great idea. But things happen in France that don't happen in Utah, in our protected shield of the Mormon religion, that keeps us from, I guess basically France.
Yeah.
Basically what it protects you from. So then you go over there and you learn a whole bunch of cool stuff that you didn't even know really existed. And of course, I'm going to try all of it if I can. And
Yeah.
so I did. Needless to say, come back and I wasn't quite all as I was when I left. I guess the innocence had washed away in some hard brute apple cider. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah.
So, needless to say, I meandered through high school, still graduated on the honor roll, high honor, and it was an easy task. I fortunately school was easy
Yeah.
as far as high school was concerned. And it was kind of the natural given expectation that you're going to roll from high school to university or college. So the University of Utah's, that was no problem to get in. Went in. My parents had got divorced about, I think I was 16.
Mm.
So they'd split up. Dad took off to California. Mom was a hairdresser, which was still awesome. And she also did some porcelain dolls. Hard worker, just kind of paid her way, but had nothing. So I had no opportunity to have mom pay for school, and my dad wasn't paying for school. So I had to figure a job out to do school. And I got my EMT in high school, and then I thought I was going to be a firefighter. And then my first paychecks were looking at like $6.13 an hour. And lump and freight, you make $7.50 an hour, which is like 25% more money.
Yeah.
And if you're going to pay for your fuel and for school, you kind of need the 25% more money.
Right.
Needless to say, to get to your point of your question, I just kind of want to preface that
No,
whole
that's
piece,
great
just to get
backdrop.
everybody lined up. When I got to the school, it was damn expensive, especially when you're making 750, right? And
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm paying a couple thousand at the time. You might as well ask me to hang the moon. And then I took really dumb courses because I didn't know how to sign up for school. Like literally was harder than just going to, your high school or junior high where they tell you you're going to this class.
Yeah.
And I set up my school. I'll give you the rule number one. What I hate the most is I'd set up my own classes. Like I'll take astrology. That sounds amazing. And then I'll go over here into like psychology and sociology. Well, the University of Utah campus is huge.
Yeah.
Well, my classes were, strategically on opposing sides of the whole university. So you're talking like a 10-minute bike ride at full throttle with 5 minutes in between classes kind of game.
Yeah.
So in Utah, on the hill where the University of Utah is, the first sign of snow, you're going to get buried, right? And so
Yeah.
it turned miserable. So there was the expensive school, the idiocracy of me trying to take classes I didn't understand, like astrology or whatever. And then, of course, psychology and sociology. I shouldn't be learning from that. I should be being taught. I mean, I shouldn't be going to school for it. I should be listening to one, right? Because I
Yeah.
had my own mental issues at the time. And I just thought, you know what, this sucks. And I was being problematic to my mother, and she decided that she was going to kick my happy ass right out of her house because that's where I was free living.
Yeah.
And ended up moving with my family in New York. But at that time, I'm like, man, I'm paying an awful lot of money at school to try to learn something that's going to make me $40,000 or $50,000 a year.
Yeah.
And so I had a lot of animosity. One is I felt like I was paying a lot and delaying my future. When I watched my mom cutting hair and making it, if that's what we called it, but there was food on the table and a roof on her head. So
Yeah.
making it in what I think has become pretty normal today for most Americans. Um, and I was a little frustrated with that. So
Yeah.
that's a long way to answer that question. I'm sorry, Phil.
No, that's great. Now, within that, you kind of hinted at it. So at that point, you end up moving to New York, and then not too far or long after that, you moved to Colorado. So talk a little bit about what took you out to New York, and then your friend's dad inviting you to Colorado to do some work there.
Full transparency, because I'm always like the art of the deal. So my mom's wanting me to out, and she thought she'd move me in with my really LDS uncle and aunt, Dave and Lori Pringle in New York, to
Mhm.
get me rebaptized or whatever. I mean, not really. I'm just going to use that as long as we're
Right.
teasing Mormon stuff,
Yep.
and nothing against Mormons. I'm just using that. So I'd also found this really creative thing. There was this girlfriend that I just absolutely fallen in love with that got a job in Mahwah, New Jersey. I'm like, hey, look, man, we're just a few hours away. I'll get kicked out and get sent to New York. You can be in Mahwah, New Jersey, and no one will know the first thing about nothing. So that's how I was fairly reasonably acceptant of this exit to the far East Coast, right?
That's chess and checkers right there, my man.
Right.
You are.
This is how, like, okay, this will work out great. And then what I didn't realize is New York, I mean, most people know New York is New York City. At least I did as an 18-year-old Centerville, Utah boy. I'm like, giant towers, party, underage drinking, whatever you want to have happen, you probably could pull off in New York.
Yeah.
I'm in. Right. So, and anyway, get over there. And well, my uncle and aunt lived in Appalachian, New York, which is like Little Meadows, Pennsylvania, Binghamton, Endicott. I mean, we were right by whatever that university is right there. By, oh gosh, dang it. Why can't I remember? Cornell, Cornell
Okay.
University.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
just like by Finger Lakes, like it's quiet town. I wasn't close enough to Cornell to make it matter. I was far enough in the woods to make it suck.
Yeah.
And I loved New York. Don't get me wrong. For all those you in upstate New York, it's amazing. Don't be there in the winter of '93 or '94 whenever we had that horrific snowstorm that I was the only one that could get around. I'm like, I moved from Utah to New York to get snowed out. Are you shitting me? This is the dumbest thing I've ever seen. You know what I mean? Why am I here?
Yeah.
Needless to say, 6 months of that, because I moved in the fall of winter in New York, and the girlfriend being too far away for it to really matter. My friend Ben Cheney, his dad had a company called Cheney Brothers Construction, which to preface this, my dad was a stockbroker when I was younger. So I always thought white collar worker don't want to ever be in blue collar. That is not for like real people to make money. That is for people that don't want to make money to live.
Mm. Yeah.
Offered me a job, and I thought, well, this will get me out of this freaking hellhole of cold. So
Yeah.
I'm going to head there. And I got a job with the Cheneys, and they had a couple grocery stores they were remodeling in Denver, and we were living in Aurora. So I got count me in. I'm going. So went down there, and it was not fun work, but it was hard work. It was so unfun that even all the brothers quit. So I'm stuck with the dad.
Yeah.
And he's a great man. He's dead now, but he was like bite, swallow, chew later kind of guy
Yeah.
at lunch. And he'd never want to go home. We got in two rear ends that he would drive half asleep because we'd work 24 or 36 hours because everybody quit. And he'd rear end the car in front of us nonstop. He'd talk to you with the bathroom door open. I mean, this was a freaking mind blowing experience. I'm like, where am I and who is this dude? Why do you call me in here like the old president that would talk to you on the throne? Like,
Yeah.
this doesn't make sense to me. But it really gave me this baptism of work. And I stayed with him for, I don't know if it was 6 to 9 months. It might have been a year, but that's a pretty shady part of my life. So I can't quite pin dates down to it. I tried. And it doesn't, I'll get it someday. But needless to say, couldn't do it forever, but I really learned how to work hard. This guy really instilled like 36 hours a shift or 48 hours straight trying to do a grocery store turnover. The longest singular shift we worked was almost 72 hours. And when we were sound asleep under the cashier or the check stands, we weren't under the cashier. Get your mind out of the gutter. We were putting in the check stand and we were both out. We were trying to set the register, the conveyor, and finally we went home. But at that point, I'm like, man, I need to go back to Utah and probably go back to school where I'm going to get really smart and not have to do blue collar work and try to reinvent myself. Because I've from here till 19, I was almost 19 or 19. Like I have made every bad decision to put me under the cashier or the check stand at a freaking Smith's in Aurora, Colorado. So
Yes.
back to the U.
Back to Utah you go, and you end up at Weber State this time. And while
Nope,
you're
still at the U.
you still
Still at the
went to
U.
the okay.
Yep. So went back to the U, and it still was not what I was expecting, man. I got back to the University of Utah, and my neighbor had asked me to build a shed. And
Yes.
I'm like, that's where the whole shed extravaganza took off.
Yes. So talk a little bit about that. Were there skills that you learned while you were in Colorado that ended up helping you, be able to do things like that? Because the shed business ends up being kind of the intro to entrepreneurial success for you.
Yeah, 100%. So I'd like to say yes, there was some great skills that I learned in Colorado. I probably framed a few walls. I knew how to use a measuring tape and a carpenter's pencil and a speed square. Like,
Yeah.
yes, I knew those. I'd never built a real building per se. I mean, we were doing like the partition walls that say produce and deli in the grocery store that we'd hang from the ceiling out of metal studs. And there was a couple little patch walls that you do, just moving grocery store
Yeah.
stuff. Most of the stuff we did was the end fixturing, right?
Yep.
So it wasn't like I'd learned how to I never put a shingle on. I'd never put like, tar paper on. But because I've never said I didn't know how to do anything because I was really short and didn't ever want to be embarrassed, I just pretended like I knew everything, which, by the way, that fake it till you make it kind of statement. Yeah, that works most of the time, but there's times where you really get caught with your pants down. And you just have to be ready to take it. And I don't mean it in any foul way,
Yep.
but if you're gonna say you know something, you might just get caught. And it's okay too, because you're gonna learn that thing. I guarantee you,
Yeah.
you'll learn it. So I told the neighbor, he said, "Hey, will you build me this shed?" It was like a 10 by 12 in my backyard. I said, "Oh man, sheds. Easy. Hell, I worked in grocery stores. I could do sheds all day long." And so I'm like, "All right, I'll work on it." I need, and at that point, it's like, "How do you have the money? I can't go buy your wood. I
Yeah.
don't even know the first thing about business." So he goes, yeah, I need some money for wood, right? Because I just in college. So he gave me half down. He's like, it'd probably be $600. And he goes, go find out what it would cost, And so I went down to Tough Shed, which had at the point like three locations. And they were on 21st South, and their other two I didn't know about, but there was a shed place down in Salt Lake. I went and I kind of looked at all their stuff, and I'm like, that's okay. This is easy. This is easy. I'm measuring stuff out, like all the things you probably shouldn't do. But I noticed every one of their shed doors were tweaked wide open, like they just kind of twisted open the top corner. I'm like, well, that's really dumb because it was raining when I was down there. It was just going in the door.
Yeah.
There's a better way. And they were using 2x4s to box this door, not just in, but they mounted it onto the inside of the shed door to give it kind of some rigidity.
Yeah.
But if a 2x4 is not nailed to a top plate and a bottom plate, it's just going to do a knot. You're just going to twist like an S. And every door was doing it. So I thought, there's a better way to do this. And so I just thought a tube steel. My uncle owned a boat shop, Rogers Marine. And he was always welding stuff. And I'm not a welder. So at this point, I've never built metal stuff. I've watched my uncle build metal stuff,
Yeah.
and that's not me. So I just kind of put the whole thing together and built my first shed. And I charged him $1,200 or $1,500. And I did it in a week. I was on the phone with my dad, like, Dad, I don't want Slim to know this, but I don't know how to put on felt paper. And how do I do shingles? Like
Yeah.
it was a horrific learning lesson, and bless that guy's heart, he still paid his bill. I don't know if that shed still exists, but we at least got through the learning lesson. And after that, I realized that I could make like 750, $800 in a week,
Yeah.
which is a dynamic different than 750 an hour back at UW Freight again for
Yeah.
40 hours. It's paying you $300. I'm like, dude, I worked half as much. I still went to school and I made double, almost three times the money in the same week.
I
I'm going
love
to do this. That's how that worked. And then the neighbor wanted one, and the next neighbor wanted one. It kind of did like three or four in a row there. Like it worked out good.
And then, if I understand correctly, you either got invited or submitted to a conference where the sales really
The
went
Utah
through the roof.
State Fair, brother. That's how big that conference was. We even have bands, we have cattle on display, and that big giant yellow slide. And right next to that giant yellow slide, you can find Frontier Shed Company's sheds, a house style and a barn style sitting right there. Come ride the giant yellow slide and pick up your shed today.
I love it.
That was the game.
That's
So
amazing.
we put two freaking displays in. I can't remember. It was like $800 for this space, which you might as well have asked me to hang the boon. But because I got rich selling three or four sheds, I had a little bit of dry powder, and I'm going to put it all in. And one thing that I was then, and I wish I could say I'm not anymore, is I'm an all-in guy.
Yeah.
Like I am a high risk, high reward player. It is all into bankruptcy. My financial advisors hate me. My bankers hate me. I mean, they love me because they're making money, but they
Yeah.
also are like, dude, you're freaking so nuts. Like I can't even say you're dumb anymore because I can see your balances. But I'm like, Yeah, but you just go in. I'm like, don't get me wrong. There's a calculated dumb, right? There's a part
Yeah.
where you've really gone to where you use experience and intuition and kind of like those two components that help you be not quite so dumb on your risky bets. But I
Yes.
did a $600, dude, and in 10 days sold $66,000 in sheds.
Amazing.
And I'm like, shit, bro, I'm out of college. I was going to school to make 50 grand. Now I made 66 grand in 10 days because my mind doesn't go that far in advance where I really have to buy lumber and have to still build all the sheds. I just am sitting with $33,000 in half down deposits in this little 19-year-old kid's checking account where Deseret Credit Union's like, bro, are you dealing drugs? Like,
Yeah.
why did you come up with all this money? What's happening here? You were negative last week and now you have capital.
Yes.
So the most important thing you could ever do, and everybody listening, don't ever forget this. This is a secret. When you come up with a large sum of capital, go buy a brand spanking new pickup truck because you'll never have to pay that back. No, I'm just kidding. So that's what I
Well,
did.
we haven't fast forwarded to 22 yet.
This is the day. Like I'm 19 years old. I ran down to Tooele. They had the new release of the Ram Cummins diesel. And I'm like, oh yeah, I'm gonna go buy me a 1994 or yeah, 1994 Dodge Ram diesel stick shift today. And the sticker was like 35,000. I'm like, go figure. I got 33,000. I can do a little freaking finance. We'll get this whole thing figured out. This is great. So I drove home from Tooele with a brand spanking new 30 some odd $1,000 truck and still had to buy wood.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's that part. So it's not that I blew all the money. Don't get me wrong. We financed a portion of it, but
Yep.
that's just kind of where that 19-year-old level of maturity was at. And all of us, when we make our first check, we wanted to show people that we finally kind of figured out a gold mine thing. So we're going to wear our Rolex or we're going to get our new little sports car or the bigger pickup or the boat or the bigger house. And that stuff matters, I think, in our first initial award to ourselves. And that becomes a problem if people could just delay that display of success. You just gotta wait.
Yep.
Even though it feels like we've got our first win, I promise that is a first win, and that's amazing. And congratulations. But get ready to get flushed down a toilet because there is so many different things that come down through business.
Yes. So talk a little bit about the next kind of 3 years with getting the patent, Home Depot, but then at 22, hitting a tough patch.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So I was going into Home Depot, and by the way, I thought Home Depot was like the only store, the only Home Depot was 21st South and 3rd West in the whole world because that's nothing exists outside of Salt Lake, right? Because you grew up in Centerville and that's your world. It really was kind of this bubble. Even though I'd been to Colorado, we didn't ever go to the store. They delivered stuff to there. So I didn't really know or was aware of Home Depot anywhere else.
Yeah.
I'm buying from this store over and over and over again from the all the state fair sales. And this dude walks up to me and his name was Rick, and he's like, "What are you doing with all this T111, dude? You just keep buying all our T111." And I'm like, "Well, I build sheds." He goes, "Well, you should build our sheds." And they used to do these handy home builder sheds. They were a house style unit and a barn unit hanging on the wall of the inside of the store. I'm
Yeah.
like, "Oh yeah, man, that's cool." But I go, "Mine are way better. I'm not 2x2 construction. I'm 2x4 construction, and I have a badass metal framed inside of the door, so my doors never warp, sag, or anything. They're just awesome. You're gonna love
Yeah.
it." So actually, he came and he saw a display, a leftover from the state fair, which by the way was at my mom's house, because my manufacturing facility was at my mom's house, and we bypassed the other piece. I did get cited for manufacturing in a residential neighborhood by the city of Centerville, and then also I got cited for contracting without a license because I didn't know you needed that either.
Yeah.
And by the way, of course, if you don't have a contractor's license, you don't know that you need insurance
Right.
or construction. So I got cited for operate ear contracting without a license or insurance. So I mean, by 19, I'd have like every ticket you could do or violate. I made every violation you could violate in this whole learning experience, which is we call a PhD the hard way, right?
That's right.
So they came in and Home Depot's like, dude, this is freaking awesome. You should build our sheds for us. I'm like, yeah, no problem. I'll build your sheds. You're just down the street. This will be awesome. Well, I end up with this banker's box of paperwork. I'm like, who the Sam hell are these people? They think they're all badass. They're buying from me. I'm not buying from you, bro. I'm like, yeah, I'm buying from you, but I didn't ask you for a banker's box.
Right.
Who do you think you need to ask me for a banker's box? Well, the guy actually came and helped me fill out the paperwork at my mom's house, the
Wow.
buyer, who happened to be a regional buyer out of Fullerton, California at the time. And there was a few curveballs there. Um, One, I didn't qualify for a lot of the stuff, and we had to get all our I's dotted and T's crossed. So some of it I lied. Well, let's be honest, most of it I did lie because I didn't have 4 years of experience in construction. Hell, I just barely had 6 months. But
Yeah, right.
either way, there was all this stuff that was just minutia.
Yeah,
Probably should have paid more attention. Didn't really care. Wanted a paycheck.
yeah,
And then I had to get past the point that all of a sudden they wanted me to put displays in all their stores. And guess what? It was more than 21st South, 3rd West. It was all the Southwest region.
yeah,
I'm like, hold on, you have more than one store? That doesn't make sense. And then why am I buying your display for your store? This doesn't make sense either.
yeah,
And so, needless to say, I called the merchant and said, hey, bro, I have no money to go put a bunch of displays all over your stores. And I think the dumbest thing you could ever do is hang it on a wall. That's dumb. You can't see my door. You don't get a walk in there. So we got Home Depot convinced. I had to go to Fullerton, California. It was super, super scary. They used to have the merchant's office on the side of their Fullerton store. So you'd have like a normal Home Depot and walk over into the regional office. Remember sitting there and seeing all the fancy names of DeWalt, 1 million in revenue, like crazy stuff at that point in my life.
yeah, right, right.
And sitting down with the merchant, and I said, "Hey, here's the deal. What you guys want to do is put my sheds on the wall, which is stupid, and nobody's going to see what you're buying me for. So the value proposition of my shed door is hidden. So let's get that down to where people can see it." He's like, "What are you proposing?" I'm like, "Let's put it out in the lawn and garden where these things belong by the front door, right where you put the flowers, because that
Yeah,
makes sense. Like people can walk in, see my shed, they'll be able to step in it, see the metal frame, and then kind of get an idea what an 8x8 is or a 10x10 is and a 10x12. And even better for me, for you, for me, why it feels good to me, for you, for me, is that you can buy the display
yeah,
instead of me buying the display. So that'll work out great for me and for you, but for me." Right. So that worked out really well. And they ended up giving me purchase orders for displays in every one. And the cool part is truly, like, I was able to, at a young age, convince a ginormous big box. At the time, they had 500 stores,
yeah,
what they were doing wrong. And credit to Home Depot, now they're just a bunch of thread counters, like they count their pant thread instead of really trying to figure out what's good in construction. Bless their hearts, I'm still a vendor. They still do millions and millions with me, but they already know how I feel. They just need to be better. And they're just not. So they're the thread counting people. And needless to say, they're innovative, they're creative, and when properly talked to, and you can paint a picture the right way on what they really should be presenting to the consumer, they'll listen. And they still are kind of that way, but you got to get the right ear.
yeah,
So it was easier then. Like they were a little bit more Wild West. Home Depot was wanting to take over the world. They had this 1,000 by 2,000 mission, and I felt really part of it. And I was probably one of the youngest vendors they'd ever had. Right.
amazing.
I mean, I'm not sure what it is, but I'm assuming I was probably one of the youngest. I was still trying to figure out puberty, let alone I got Home Depot. Well, this thing skyrocketed. So we ended up opening a location in Phoenix and Vegas and Utah, and we're pushing money. And here's the thing what you didn't know, and then these things that turn back, that whole principle is I never gave up on my direct to consumer model.
Hmm.
So after the state fair, what's great about them is they're putting 50% down and 50% on completion. And then that pipeline dries up. And so I did yellow pages and I did flyers and I did all the stuff to keep that D2C model because I was addicted to cash
Yeah,
because I drank a lot and I like to date and I like to date. Oh, yeah. And I dated and way too many. And I had to impress every girl and go to every party if it's in New York or New Orleans. Like I started this problematic lifestyle.
yeah,
So I kept that model going for cash. And then Home Depot started to get the momentum. And what was great is Home Depot had the displays, and I figured out a way to showroom through Home Depot and get the direct to consumer sell by offering Kool-Aid, no sugar, peanut butter, no jelly, kind of like what Murphy Door does already. You
yeah,
can go to Home Depot and buy a certain door, but you can't get all the fancy stuff at Home Depot. You have to buy it direct.
yeah,
So it's been a crazy ride that way. So I got to the point where we were doing 8 figures and then all of a sudden 20, and I got way out of control. I thought, you know what? I'm going to sell one of my franchises. And I liquidated to another, and I say trusted church authority. I shouldn't say he's my church authority. He'd used the church position as an advertising component to another
hmm,
Utah person that's like, even though I'm not going to church, I'm like, oh, well, he's this person in the church. I
yeah,
trust him already because I was told that's who you trust.
yeah,
And we made an agreement that he'd buy my Phoenix location for $2 million, even though we were making more than that. I'm like, dude, it'd be so nice if I could just dump Phoenix,
right.
just walk away, and then I could just like probably date and live a normal life and calm down. And so I did that. and he put 20,000 down and he needed his wife's signature. Well, in the meantime, over a few weeks, he liquidated every single asset that that Phoenix location had. I'd already turned over the keys because I trusted him. He
Yeah.
got Home Depot to send all the accounts receivable that they owed my whole company to this new system to his business address.
Hmm.
He opened an account at the local bank, Zions Bank, under the old Frontier Shed Company instead of Frontier Shed Company, and he wired all that money into there. Now, my young, innocent age of whatever, not innocent, that was exaggeratory big time. I was far from innocent, but
Yeah.
dumb. That was where
Yeah.
I was. I thought, you know what? I'm going to go get an attorney. I don't know how to get the money out. Well, I could just go to Zion's and tell them that, hey, you put that in the wrong account. That's my account. And that check was made to Frontier Shed Company. That's old Frontier Shed Company. You owe me the money. And I could have got it back like this fast. But in my wise youthfulness, I'd asked an attorney what would be the best idea. And attorneys sit right next to salesmen. And I love you both, Craig, Eric, Can, all you of my attorneys. Like I bless your hearts, but you sit next to my car salesman in this world. They're just a pain. They always need work. They never want to close a deal. I mean, they're going to be mad, and it's okay. Your bill keeps going up anyway. Just be mad. So at the end of the day, when they come back to you, he's like, dude, we need to sue for damages. This is
Hmm.
going to be great. You're going to get really rich. Instead of owing you 2 million, we can get 10 out of this guy. He's rich. I'm like, oh, 2 to 10, I'm in. Right
Yeah.
back to the high risk game. Well, what they didn't tell you as an attorney is that if you're going to sue for damages, you more than likely are going to suffer some.
Hmm.
At that current state in my mind, I hadn't suffered really yet. It was only a couple weeks. I was on top of my money. The
Yep.
money went to the wrong place. I could have got my money back, been out of the rearview mirror thinking, moved forward with my beautiful windshield, gone back to Phoenix, gone back to work. Everything would have been fine. But instead, I'm like, damages, bro,
Yeah.
10 million without working. This is going to be
Right.
great. 15 months later, paying 50 grand a month or so to my freaking attorney, which was bleeding me dry because I didn't have all the receivables Home Depot had. I'm basically Ponzi scheming this game of my D2C customers coming in. I still can't stop drinking and smoking and all the other BS because there's that other side of you,
Yep.
right? And it's just not putting things together. And then one thing I did learn is that when you're 21, I turned off a lot of people, right? In the aspect of beautiful people like yourself, Phil, would come up and say, man, can I help you? Let
Hmm.
me point you in the right direction, man.
Yeah.
I'm going to point you this way. I got you some advice. Well, in my early upcoming of making money, I'd look at you and be like, bro, aren't those Payless shoes you're wearing? How much money do you make a year?
Yeah.
There ain't shit you're going to teach me. And so I would take beautiful mentors, people I looked up to that could really direct me into a place where I could go with a couple words of advice like, bro, turn a left, a little bit right, do this, and you'll be fine.
Hmm.
But instead, I'd burned every bridge along the way. And so when I got to the point where I'm like, I need to ask somebody, I had nobody to ask
Hmm.
because I'd
Yeah.
offended, and maybe they weren't that offended, but in our hearts, as you're 19, 20, 21, 22 years old, you felt like you were so tough they'd never talk to you again. As
Yeah.
grown adults, this happens to us on a daily basis. And bless those people's hearts that get mad and won't even go to dinner after I cuss you out. That's too bad because we could have good dinners. I'm pretty picky with food, but
Yeah.
we can fight well and still eat. That's the game plan. People can tell me how big of a piece of crap I am. I'm like, oh yeah, I totally agree. What should we eat? I mean, it doesn't, I mean,
Yeah.
it is what it is, but it's taken a lot of beatings. In the meantime, what happened when lumber yards were calling and the power company was calling, I didn't know how to deal with it. I'm sticking my head in the sand. I've never been in this position.
Hmm.
Where do I go? How do I do it? And
Yeah.
instead, I'm just hiding. Customers saying, dude, where's my shed? How come it's taking so long? Well, I'm like literally waiting for the next guy to pay me so I could build the last guy's shed and, still trying to pay the attorney because I needed my $10 million is hanging over. Like
Yeah.
this is who was getting all my capital. And if I didn't do it that way, I would have been in such a different place. And it's
Yeah.
unfortunate that I was looking at this short-term gain and I sacrificed my long-term potential.
Yeah.
It was super dumb. But you wouldn't have ever done it if you didn't go broke. So needless to say, I went broke, moved back home. Mom wondering what the hell I was doing. In the meantime, I there's two components here. Towards the end of the shed company, I'd got a girl pregnant.
Hmm.
She moved to Florida with the kid, got married before she had a baby, put his name on the birth certificate, messed with my head.
Hmm.
I got another backup girlfriend. We'd build a house together in that period, right? I mean, I was
Yeah.
working fast, obviously. in whatever it could take.
Yeah.
Uh, I'm collapsing and stressing her out at the same time. You know, the new girlfriend, my other
Yeah.
son's over there. That's stressing me out. I'm working with an attorney trying to get, how do I get on the, birth certificate? How do I get visitation? I wasn't trying to dodge my money. I wanted to be involved in my son's life. My dad already took off to California. I was going to be damned if
Mhm.
I did that.
Yeah.
So this is all this stuff to paint the detailed back into the picture. Well, there was a point finally, my girlfriend's like, I'm done with this guy. She ends up dating another dude. I come home and this is my low low. Remember, I was telling you I was working on my autobiography this
Yeah.
weekend. I forgot this whole piece. I haven't remembered this part of my life until I was working on it Saturday. I'm like, what? How did I was trying to figure out when the shit happened and why I got kicked out of Kim's house. I'm like, oh crap, it's because she said I can't deal with your stress anymore. You're not dealing with this. She ends up sleeping with one of my good buddies. I drive home one morning. I bought her like this little gift. His truck was in the driveway. I have a temper. I decide to drive my truck through the house. That was one thing I'd forgot in my
Yeah.
life. You probably haven't heard this part. So
No.
it wasn't on purpose. I jumped out of my dually. I'm like, that son of a bitch, I'm gonna get him. Well, I get out. I didn't put my truck in park. It was a 1-ton dually diesel. It was a stick shift first gear. Those things will hit a block wall and keep still, right?
Right.
So it drove through the metal garage door, little aluminum garage door opener, and hit her truck and pushed it through the next wall. I run up the stairs. I don't know what my truck had done.
Yeah.
I had no clue in my head that it had hit that. I was so worked up. And I knocked out the front window with my fist because the door was locked, and I wanted to go in and beat Brian's ass. And so I walk in, and he's running down the stairs, and he's jumping out the back door, and it turned into this wild, crazy mess. Needless to say, cops show up. I'm hogtied on the front lawn, curtains blowing out the front window, my truck's chirping on the front driveway. I'm like, what the crap's going on? So fortunately, I knew the chief of police there because of the first part where I did fire.
Yeah.
I said, hey, man, if you're going to take me to jail, call XYZ because I've been on this with him before at
Yeah.
his house. And he's now the chief. He's like, how do you know this guy? I'm like, just call him and tell him if he's taking me to jail, I want him to take me to jail because I was there with him when he did
Mhm.
this.
Yep.
So, needless to say, he didn't take me to jail, took me to the U, got my hands fixed, and said, you can never go back there. And I never did.
Yep.
Moved my car. Everything fell apart. And that's where I'm like, peace out, I'm out. So
Yeah.
that was what was missing in my brain, Phil. So that's the
Yeah.
first time I said I don't know why I missed that whole component, but putting that together the other day, that's how I ended in my car.
So you're at this rebuilding moment, right? I mean, everything that you had been building up was that seemed to be exactly what you thought is now dissolving, right? I mean, the cash is gone, the business is floundering, the relationships are different, they're struggling, they're all these things. Now, for a lot of people, that's where the story just continues on for the rest of their life. So talk a little bit about that season of life for you and kind of that redemption, that bounce back of one, sometimes you need to sit in the dirt, right? You got to sit in that for a minute, because to your point, hey, there might have been some bridges that were burned. There might have been some relationships that you can't rely on anymore. But talk about kind of the rebuild and just really where your mentality was at that point.
Oh, heck yeah. So this was the best part. So at that point, of course, how I ended up my car was I didn't have a house. And I'm like, I got to get out of this. But before that, to make this even more interesting, is I was super depressed.
Hmm.
And I'm not moving out yet. I'm embarrassed. My girlfriend's sleeping with my buddy. I don't have a business. I don't have all my friends that used to take him to party and spend money on for everything. The girls, my buddies, all disappeared. Like the true story is you really only have 3 or 4 friends, right?
Yep.
And then I was teeny. I got my driver's license at 4'11". So just to give you an idea, and I'm like 6'1" or something.
Yeah.
And I was like 95 pounds. And I graduated at 5'7". So I was not a big person. And now, like I said, I'm bigger.
Yeah.
But there's this guy in high school that just constantly chirps at you that is always better than you, that you just kind of pick. And for whatever reason, he's the dude that always has the nicer thing, the nicer girlfriend, the nicer truck, the more money, the things that matter to teenage boys,
Yeah.
right? Well, I had to preface this kid because this kid was like that buddy of a buddy that's always in the middle of everything, and I just couldn't stand him.
Yeah.
Like he's, oh no, I hate this guy. Well, needless to say, I get to the point where, of course, since I can't go on, I'm going to go kill myself. And my cousin had died at an early age, and there's this place in Utah in Bountiful that's called Dead Man's Curve. And whether we know that he jumped off a curve, his dead man's curve on purpose or not, it didn't have a guardrail, is yet to be determined. We'll find out later, assuming when we pass away and get a visit. But um, in the meantime, I thought that would be the best place to continue the Barker legacy of
Mm.
exiting on Dead Man's Curve. So I
Wow.
went up there, parked my truck up the street, walked down with a 44 mag, sat at the side of the hill, and was just going through the process of how do I deal with it. This dickhead that teased me my whole life sees my truck up the dirt road. I mean, this is quite a ways off a main road. We're talking up by the B. If you guys are familiar with Bennell, it's up above that. And it's quite a drive up. And he was going up there to play with his girlfriend or whatever. Saw my truck parked around the corner from Dead Man's Curve and put two and two together, like, okay, I know what he's doing. So he ends up hiking down the trail and walking into me in the middle of the night. This is like 1 or 2 in the morning. He's
Wow.
like, I mean, you have to imagine you're literally at the middle of the hillsides of these big, huge mountains in Bountiful, like mid-height level. So this
Yeah.
isn't by accident. At least I did think that at first.
Yeah.
And he walked me back to my truck. I'm humiliated. Here's his half-dressed girlfriend sitting in the middle. Here's me sitting in the passenger seat with a pistol, trying to kill yourself. Both gone to school with them,
Mm.
and just former rich, right?
Yeah.
In their eyes, they're like, bro, what's happening? So I'm like humiliated, wouldn't let me drive home. And then I went back the next morning to get my pickup truck. And I'm like, okay, well, I can't go to the B. That's dumb. All my friends party at the B. Why would I have gone to the B? That's really, really dumb. That's where
Mm.
we hang out. I'm going to go west to deep into the Great Salt Lake. I'll go hide back in the freaking mud. No one goes to the Great Salt Lake. So I drive out there. I'm not shooting you. 2 in the morning again. That same little bastard with his girlfriend goes out to diddle out her in the middle of the lake. He shows up with me again, dude. I'm like, okay, that doesn't make any sense why
Yeah.
this dude shows up at the same time in the total opposite side of the valley. And then I get in his truck and there's a Kid Rock song, Only God Knows Why.
Mm.
Out with the cigarettes, out with the antidepressant. Not my time. And
Yep.
I'm not a Kid Rock dude. I'm a Hank Williams dude at the time. Huge Kid Rock fan now, but at that time it was just like old Western, right?
Yeah.
And some rap mixed with Eminem. Like I was kind of mixed up, but
Yeah.
either way, that was this point of like, okay, I got to get out of here. Like this part of my life, I have to finish. So I'm
Mm.
going to put this to bed. I got to get away, especially now that my nemesis from high school saw me 2 nights in a row in the worst position you could ever be in. Never do I want to face this ever again in my life. I'm going to go drive. So I ended up getting in contact with the people that haul RVs around.
Yeah.
And that's what I did. So I connected with a group called Bennett Transport. And I'll have to tell you what, 6 months to talk to your point about you have to get in the dirt.
Yeah.
6 months of that car ride, dude, is I hated myself
Yeah.
every minute of every day, begging for showers at Flying J, hoping I have enough money for a pack of cigarettes, hoping I have enough money for a can of chew because I was really smart. I wanted to confuse the cancer and not make sure it didn't settle my lungs or my lips. So I'm like, I bought both and it would
Yeah.
just kind of mess with shit. You know, I'm like, it won't figure out where to go. So needless to say, it was my life was Rockstar, Flying J Pizza, Copenhagen, and Marlboro Lights,
Yep.
and then Flying J Showers. So, and then these trucks, I mean, you're making like 70 cents a mile, which was barely enough to keep diesel and tires on your truck. So it was nothing.
Right.
Um, all of a sudden, 6 months. What was weird in that piece is I remember just crying nonstop in my, like, who am I? What a loser. No, no cell phone. Like, you guys, it's easy for you to think, oh, that's easy. I'll sit there and surf freaking whatever on the internet. And yeah,
Yep.
no, dude, no cell phone at all. Payphone still, like, it's not like it's the 60s or 50s. I mean,
Yeah.
we're talking,
Right.
it's talking about a broke dude when they were charging by the minute for cell phone. That's what it's talking about. So, yes, there's cell phones. Jeremy didn't have a cell phone
Yeah.
to distract myself, which I have to be honest with you. I was listening to this little thing on YouTube about the silence, finding the silence. And
Mm.
it was just some YouTube clip that happened to go on, like giving yourself 60 to 90 minutes of silence is
Yeah.
a game changer. Dude, try 6 months of the only conversation you have is the Flying J gas attendant, trying to convince her to give you a shower because you're not buying 100 gallons of gas at a time. You're buying 30.
Yeah.
I'm like, but I buy all my gas here every day. Please hook me up. I don't have a 100 gallon tank,
Yeah.
but I'm hauling RVs, and it worked out good. And they were pretty good friends. I mean, not that I knew any of them because it was gas station to gas station, but I'd learned how to talk to them. And then there was this day that I realized that I'd done a good inventory. I found all my fail points. Like I sucked at this and I was a dickhead at this and I should have never done that. And I didn't understand accounting and I didn't know this and I didn't know this. And I inventoried mistakes. Now, obviously not every mistake I'd made, but or potential mistake, but I'd inventoried what I could account. And
Hmm.
then I accounted for it and then I came up with a plan on what I'd do different. And once I had a plan of what I'd do different, there was this transitional period. And I would say it was almost dead nuts 6 months in. And by the way, the day I moved in my car, I said, I'm doing this for a year.
Hmm.
I can do anything hard for a year. A
I love
year is
that.
nothing. If I can do this, like, what is the worst thing you can think of as a 22-year-old multimillionaire broke? Is like, you know what'll be humiliating? Is live in your car broke for a year.
Yeah.
I didn't have any other responsibilities. Like, whatever. No one's going to care if I get out of my car. Of course, my family would have, but in my head, my friends that I couldn't take them to the bar anymore didn't care. So I just made a commitment to myself. It's a year.
Hmm.
And so 365 days to the day is what I did. And anyhow, once that 6 month point hit, and there was like, I became my own best friend. And it was weird because I didn't want to talk to anybody else. I
Hmm.
didn't want to dilute my point of confidence that I'd created and the
Yeah.
positivity in my failure that I'd built in belief for myself. Like, dude, you can make this. This is not that bad. You know why you lost? Because you tried. You know why you tried? Because you're smart. You know why you're smart? Because you did this and you don't believe in this. Like, don't listen to all your loser friends that are saying that you're a failure. I
Yeah.
mean, that's easy for them to say working behind the counter at Carl's Jr. Let's be honest. At least I did it. They're
Yes.
saying, "Oh, you're so stupid, bro. Did you want a large fry?" And I'm like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
No. So, but I let them take over my mindset. And you're not getting my mindset. That's one thing. And they got it. They borrowed it.
Yep.
They borrowed it, but they're going to own it. Like I created this deal that I knew when I could do it again. And I knew that, I mean, I knocked down the biggest retailer on the planet and I got them convinced to buy all my displays. And I prepubescent. Let's be honest. Like
Yeah.
this is what I can do. And so I just knew who I was. It was
I love
weird.
it.
So
So you go on this year journey, right, of kind of getting right with yourself first, which, I think is a phenomenal point. And I think for so many people, if you're who you are is tied to who people say you are. To your point, you're going to be living on a very slippery slope, right? But if you know who you are, and once again, that takes deep work, right, to come to that realization of, hey, at least you tried something. But as you're
when
moving,
you say deep work, Phil,
yeah,
I want everybody to know I am not deep. I did not have a clue what deep meant. I was forced to find deep.
yeah,
So the first thing I would have said, and the reason I wanted to jump in there was when someone would have said that to me in the past, like, bro, I don't have that level.
hmm,
I was so far from that level. I was the most shallow piece of crap, 22-year-old, freaking materialistic person. I had no depth, just so you know. So sorry, keep continuing with
no,
what you were saying.
no, I appreciate that point. I love that. Now, for you though, after this year time frame, I'm sure the financial position's not great. I'm sure.
They count. It was that many.
Yeah. So you sit there and you go, all right, well, at least like internally I'm good, but there's still a bunch of external things that are not good, right? They're not where I'd want them to be. So talk about now kind of that next wave and that next phase and
The
getting the engine
confidence wheel
revving.
spinning. So
Yeah.
I want you to know that before I got out of that truck, my confidence wheel was full throttle. I
Mm,
was driving, playing the drums on my freaking people smiling, like smoking cigarettes, looking like the biggest loser in homeless clothes, pretty much, because I couldn't buy new clothes 6 years, for a year sitting in my
yeah.
car. Like, but everybody was like, "Wow, that guy's freaking what a loser!" And I'm like, "What's up, bro?" And just singing and moving along. And my confidence level had just grown through the roof, and it was internally programmed. It was because I'd let everybody outside of my life not influence my opinion of myself.
Yeah.
So I get this call from my sister that said, "Hey, Jason Haskell's brother Guy is hiring a project superintendent for his home building company, Haskell Homes, and he'd love to have you come by." He said he'd hire a dude and he could teach you some stuff. I'd never built a house, right? So I'm like, sweet. I built some sheds with some drywall and some power and some plumbing and some bricks sometimes, like facade.
Yeah.
Houses are just that, but bigger. At least I thought.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We got
Yeah.
this. I sat down and I had whatever fancy clothes I had was like, I think I had like a Tommy Bahama shirt, like for whatever reason, and some flip flops and some khaki shorts, if I
Love
remember
that.
right. And so I walked into his office in Bountiful and I sit down and he's like, so Jason said you're really smart and you had a successful, shed company and that you're looking for work. Is this right? You live in your car? I'm like, oh yeah, you're dead right. I live in my car. He's like, well, I don't understand it. Were you like making 8+ figures a year? I'm like, oh yeah, yeah. And I just screwed it all up. And so here I am. And he's like, okay, well, what is it that you're doing? I go, well, look, what is your average? He's building these small houses, like 11 to 1500 square feet in Layton, Syracuse, and these other places. And he says, we build them, in XYZ. And I was really good at KPIs. Like before that, I didn't know what the word meant, but I knew I had cycle times I had to hit.
Yeah.
So I'm like, we could build a shed in like 2.5 hours. I could build this. That's start to finish, installed out the property, like done 2.5 hours. So I'm like, well, we could do this. How long does it take you to build a house? He goes, oh, we're building them in 8 to 9 months. And I'm like, dude, I could do them in 90 days. No problem. He's like, no, you can't. I'm like, yeah. He goes, you never even build a house. How do you know how long it takes to build a house? I'm like, because I built stuff with electrical and I
Yep.
built stuff with plumbing and I built stuff with paint and drywall. Like, I get it. I understand what you're doing,
Yeah.
but it wasn't a house. But maybe some people live in it. I don't know, but it's just bigger. So we went through this deal and he goes, all right, I'll take, he goes, I'd give you a try. How much? And I said, I'm 120,000 a year. He goes, hold on a second. Now keep in mind, this is like 1999,
Yeah.
right? At
That's good
23,
money in 99, man.
it's 10 good money in 99. So I'm like, I'm 120,000 in Utah. It's like, he goes, dude, this job pays 36,000.
Yeah.
And I go, yeah, well, I won't get out of my truck for 36,000. I got, I literally loved my space in
Yeah.
my head. And this was ironically enough, just so you guys know, at a year. This is 1 year to the day. So it was like it's meant to be kind of thing.
Yep.
Dude, you're crazy. This job doesn't pay you money. It's 3,000 a month, period. You get a cell phone, you get insurance. I'm like, yeah, peace out, bro. I'm not doing it. You know, okay. So I walked out down the hall. I'm like, people work for 3 grand a month and not realizing I'm making like 300 a month. But at the same time, I'm like, yeah, no way. You don't get me for 3 grand a month.
Yeah.
So I got in the car, drove away. My sister calls up, how'd it go? I said, well, not very good. He only pays 30, 3 grand a month. She goes, you didn't take it? I go, shit, no, I'm 120,000 a year. She goes, Jeremy, you live in your car.
Yeah.
Well, how can you say that? I'm like, man, well, I'm not going to do that for that. Like what he wants me to do, you don't get me to do for 36,000 a year. You just
Yeah.
don't get it. I
Yeah.
know I can do what you want, but you don't get that. You don't know. I know.
Yep.
Next day, my phone rings and guy goes, dude, you've really got I couldn't sleep. And I said, yeah. He goes, never in my life have I had anybody walk in on a $36,000 a year job telling me they want 120,000. When I offer them 36, they didn't want to negotiate. It was either 120 or peace out. Like, you know something that I don't know. I want you to come back in my office. So I went back in his office and I'm also a master solver, a problem solver.
Yeah.
I came up with this mathematical skill set of like, hey, look, I'm going to be 120,000 a year. I have to do houses in 90 days. Every house under that 90-day period, I'm going to take extra money per square foot for every house that I finish. And if I get it down into X, 80 days, 70 days, 60 days, I'm going to make $1 or $2, $3 a square foot bonus money. And these guys have, I don't know, 60 homes going at the time. So I'm like, listen, so I was sat down with him. I said, Guy, I will take every home that you have under construction currently. I will finish them within these 90 days, and I will start every single house that you have onboarding at the same time, and I'll finish those under 90 days. And if I don't do that in 90 days, you owe me nothing. And if you do, you owe me back pay of 10,000 a month. And I have this program that if I do this and I do it in 80 days, 7 days, 60 days, 50 days, you're going to owe me X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
Just FYI. He goes, deal.
Yeah.
I said, all right, peace. And he goes, where are you going? I said, I'm going to work, bro.
Got
He
houses
goes,
to build.
no money. He goes, well, you're going to need some money. He gave me a check for 500 bucks and a cell phone, and I need to get a hold of you. I'm like, I'm tired of going through your sister, he says. Yeah, fair enough. So got a cell phone, got a job, punch it through, finished the first house in like 40 because he had some under going. I brought in every single vendor. I told them what I was doing. I charged delay fees. I charge cleanup fees. I do this. And by the way, I worked out a side gig. It's like, I'm going to take picture. If you leave a cup in my house, I'm going to charge you $100. I'm going to keep 50 and I'm going to give 50 to guy. If you're one day late, it's $200. I'm going to keep 100. I'll give 100 to guy or the other subcontractor. So I'm insulating extra income levels inside the deal, you know? And so everybody hated my guts. He let me put together a convention center. I said, everybody, welcome to the new Marshall. Here's this dude without a whisker. Like, I'm going to crush your world, or I'll be your best friend because you'll never have a late job. It
Yeah.
will be ready or you'll be fired and you'll have paid me so much money in delay fees you wish you were because I'll take it out of all the money we owe you because we've got a whole bunch of houses with you.
Right.
They're like, this guy's a douche. And they're like, why are you making me sign all these contracts? I'm like, it's in the name, a contract or I'm just saying. It's just in the title.
Yeah. Yeah.
Great, awesome contracts. And I'm a contractor, which is an issuer of contracts. And I'm
Yeah.
going to hold you to your terms. And if I mess up, you get a little money. If you mess up, I get a little money and we're going to win because it's not the money that I want. It's the time. That's where the money is for all of us,
Yep.
the subcontractors and us together. But it was weird for them. So long story short, I got it. My fastest house I ever built was with Guy Haskell was 47 days, start to finish. And then I asked him if I could go on my own and build my sister's house. And he said, no, that you need to go through him. And I said, well, I guess it's time for me to go back out on my own. And I had the confidence, and I had the skill set, and I had the knowledge, and we exploded. We went crazy. And then the banks exploded and they drove me crazy. And then if it's funny because you're trying to get money from the bank and they're not calling you back kind of shit, that's the weird stuff. You're like,
It's
wait
weird
a
how
s-.
that one-way radio
And
works.
then they got bailed out by the freaking feds. And here we sit with all the bills and Parsons. Everybody's like, you owe me money. I'm like, I don't owe you money. Centennial Bank owes you money. And I, I had nothing to do with the proof in that deal. You asked how I had financing in place. Well, that homeowner did. Why do you? It's his house. Call him. I don't owe you nothing. So second bankruptcy,
Yes.
and we build that up to almost 30 million, I think, if not right at 30 million a year. And so it was not one that I felt an ounce bad about. And sorry to all you vendors that feel that. I did not drive the banks the way they were. I don't feel an ounce bad about the economy. I didn't make the bad decisions on the debt service. When banks go down, now could I have steered differently? 100%.
Yeah.
The mistake I made is I jumped into a tractor to try to dig myself out of the proverbial hole instead of continually trying to grind to find the work. I thought I'd save the $20 an hour, foregoing the 150,000, 200, 400,000 a month, 4 million a month that you need to produce. I mean, I had like 11 dump trucks and excavators, dozers, graders. Like we had a whole fleet of equipment. It cost a bunch of money. And on top of that, the houses. So there decisions that would have made different. 100% would have made different decisions.
Yeah.
But do I feel bad about that bankruptcy? Not even in the least bit.
Yep.
So I honestly say I didn't shed a tear.
Yeah. Now, within that, and I think sometimes the a person says, "Well, gosh, Jeremy, you experienced it once. Why don't you do things differently the second way?" But I think one of the things you talked about earlier is it's a personality quality, right? Like the way I do things is I go all in, and the reason that works is because when I go all in, I typically get good results. Now, there's the backside weakness of going all in, and that is, hey, if things don't line up the way they're supposed to, then my calculated decision doesn't pan out the way that the math worked out.
100% agree. 100% agree. You're right. 100% right. Right. The issue is when you go all in, guess what? You can't see all the stuff behind you.
That's right.
Little pieces. Like when you go in the tractor, you can't see the office and you don't know what's happening in the office and the stuff that's going south and the missed opportunities and all the stuff. Like, but I felt like that if we can't make money digging, then I better get in the tractor and dig. By
Yep.
the way, I'm not an excavator. Another thing, why am I digging,
Yeah.
bro? Like I'm gonna learn this some gun if you know what I mean. Like it was just there's so many lessons, and I've had this unique opportunity to be involved in so many different little industries inside itself. Like, yeah, sheds, but what did sheds give you? Well, a bunch of little things like electrical, plumbing,
Yeah.
drywall. What did, contracting licenses and permitting, and then houses, what did that give you? And what did excavation give you? And, my mom was doing like emergency preparedness stuff and I was helping there. So I learned, trade show business and I learned a couple things. And there's just been so many elements in my life that were so different that have amassed to be able to one be able to be ingenuitive on what does things better, being involved in fire and EMS early, and then being able to get back into it post my second bankruptcy and get my degree in paramedicine and go into freaking work at these full-time fire departments like Roy City, and getting to see the servant side, the public service side of life, and being involved in that type of creative skill set of thinking and problem solving, which is different than a business problem solving. And truly, here's what I didn't have in any of those businesses before that, even though they were eight figures, was SOPs and SOGs, like standard operating procedures, standard operating guidelines, rules, time. I mean, all the things that are footing and foundational level of business, I'd never created. Like, could I build a tower? 100%. Never once did I put a footing.
Yeah.
Right. And I didn't understand what that meant. And truly, when I sat in where you would think you wouldn't find anything that's related to building, like the Murphy Door and Inc. 5000, company 6 years in a row and a Forbes 200 small business employer and being nominated Entrepreneur of the Year by Ernst & Young for 2 years in a row, finalist last year. And I'm like, you wouldn't think you'd find that from there, but it came with so many little things that I'm like, dude, why do fire departments do this? Chain of command, span of control, like the
Yeah.
things that I just were basically elementary level of business. That I'm like, look, so when I moved into Murphy Door I started this in like December 2012, still full time at Roy. I'm
Yeah.
like, I need to build it like X, Y, and Z.
I love that. Well, and I think something that's so good about what you said is, and you hear this frequently, but you can learn something from everyone if you're humble enough to learn from them. And then two, if you can then take that and apply it to a different element, you can make that super, impactful, right? I think, for so many things, a restaurant business and hotel concierge, you're like, if you can learn the service side of things, I'm
Uh,
never going to serve someone a steak on a plate, right? That's just not what I do. But if I can
but in your
bring,
mind, you should,
yeah, right.
right?
But right. Yeah. But if I can figure out, all right, how did that make them feel? And then I can bring that into my element of business. It's like, oh man, this is a game-changing experience for that person. And that's what separates your business from others. I mean, obviously, your business, there's more than just that, right? And how you're treating customers, how you're interacting. It's the quality of the work you do. But I also think that experience that people have is a totally different experience than they would get with a different company.
Right. And it's that, but I'll tell you what comes with that. It's the experiences of all the experiences combined to give them the ultimate experience. And
Yeah.
then being able to create what I did wrong was I was super, super arrogant. In my previous businesses, I was the king and you were the slaves, kind of. And I don't mean to use it that way, but like
Yeah.
you were the ones that were required to listen to the kingpin. And I'm going to tell you what you have to do. I'm
Yeah.
the smartest in the room. I have the money. Now it's like, dude, I'm an entrepreneur 100%. I look at my team as entrepreneurial, like they take their department leads. I have, like I was saying, the John Wick team in here today
Yes.
from, the whole thing, but it's pretty funny because they go, dude, you have a lot of conference rooms in here. And I'm like, right, because we have different teams. And it's not that they're siloed teams. They actually present to each other in teams, but they bring their teams together and they talk about their KPIs and their goals and their metrics. They put everything together. And then he's like, dude, it's a really cool dynamic. They're literally like, I want to work here. This is the craziest feeling ever.
Yeah.
Like the dynamics of being able to feel entrepreneurial. And so when I do my coaching, I try to teach them from a level as an entrepreneur, and saying, hey, this is your piece of my business. Treat it like it's your business. This is what I do as the owner of this business. I want you to inject your thoughts into your business inside the Murphy Door Shield. Keep
Yeah.
in mind, we're responsible to keep everybody housed, fed, and shoes, and then their host or whatever they have going on, dance and volleyball and all their post activities. So you got to be responsible, be
Yep.
cognizant, don't waste money, make money because we got to make sure we can stay open forever. Even so much, Phil, that I'm like, I don't care if we make 1 penny this year, just one. Just make sure it's black, not red.
Yep.
Need to have a black line. Like I am all in for being what Amazon and all these big companies pre-revenue.
Yeah. Right.
Right? It's like we have this massive machine. We know where we're driving, well, what we're hitting. I mean, we're doing the next couple of years 25, 30, 40, 50% growth models. Right now we're at 71% year over year
Amazing.
this year. So I mean, it's a system. Is it profitable systems? Not all the way, because you're building infrastructures in the center of it. I mean, we manufacture everything. We've stayed domestic. We've stayed away from being impacted by tariffs. We haven't raised our price. We lowered them.
Yep.
Where all these dirtbag suppliers in the United States that are made in the USA, and we have some of our own, that they're domestic suppliers. And they heard me ran in Instagram last week. If you're domestic and you raise your price using, you know, supply and demand is your problem, and you raise my price, you're fired.
Yep.
I ended up with a whole bunch of emails in my email box. It says, we're not raising your price, Mr. Barker. I'm like, you're
Yep.
damn right you won't, because you'll be fired tomorrow and you'll never have a chance again with Murphy Door ever.
Yep.
This is not the time to get capitalistic. This is the time to work together. This is why we chose to be domestic. And so this is the way we work. But I'm like, look, people need to be cognizant of what we're going through. Make sure we make a little bit of money. Make sure we think better. We get leaner. We get more efficient. We get more effective. And guess what? I don't have the ability to do that all. But I have brilliant people on my team that do. So this time around, I've empowered my team and realized that, holy crap, we grow so much better when I give the keys to people and trust them. They're not trying to wreck my car. They
Yeah.
truly want their car to end up nice and they want to get promoted. But the fear of them crashing your car keeps you from the ability to scale and to expand your freaking horizons because you're so buried into your fear. Like
Yeah.
trust me, they want their paycheck too. They're not trying to wreck your boat. Swear to God. Have some faith.
I love that. Now, for you, as you're, in 2012, starting this new company back up, you're still working your full-time job, doing this in addition. Talk about maybe a couple key points where you started to notice that, hey, this is going to be able to take off. And then also
Yeah.
how you moved in verticals into some of the, I mean, you mentioned John Wick's team, moved into these different
Dude,
verticals, not
our
just,
verticals are crazy
yeah,
right now. Pretty awesome. I don't even know what world I'm in. I was in Mar-a-Lago 2 weeks ago. Like my life is weird and I'm thankful for it. But let me tell you where I kind of felt. Now, I want everybody here listening to realize that when I knew something was going to take off, I'd forgotten about what millions and millions felt like. Just so you guys know, I'm back to the firehouse. It's making $762 every 2 weeks. I'm working two other side gigs, cement, flooring, whatever it took to pay my bills. I'm a really good math, as we've learned previously in my life. I'm not very good financial advisor or good with my money. So I decided that I'd buy a house that's house payment was $2,311, but my biweekly paycheck was $762. So it doesn't work out. If you rub those two quarters together, it only equals like 30, what is that?
yeah,
$1,560. So you don't quite get to 2311. Plus, you got a car and gas and insurance and food and power, which was usually turned off because it got shut off a lot. But needless to say, like I wasn't great at that piece. But I'm a hard worker, and when they want a challenge, I'm like, look, here's one thing you can't do that I know I can do. You will never, ever, ever, ever outwork me,
yep,
ever. I have known a lot of people around me in my life, but there is not one person that would raise their hand to my face that says I outwork you. No one in my life.
yeah,
And it's nothing to be proud of, by the way. However, when it gets down to you said the dirt, oh,
yeah,
I'm a pig. I will work in a pigsty and dust till dawn, and my kids will have a roof and they'll have food on their pet plate. And I don't care if I come home covered in crap, that I'm not quitting. And I will never be short that way ever. I've never done that with my kids, right? Never. They've never had to be in their car. So, needless to say, what this transition, I'm just kind of getting the mindset of what that transition looked like in my head when it went from I'm onto something.
yeah,
So I decided I wanted to build a hidden door. Now, keep in mind, you got a movie theater that you're building for your kids. And let me paint the picture of this beautiful firefighter's house, like 1,700 square feet. The theater room's huge. I think it's like 9 by 8. So enough for four folding chairs, basically. It truly is that small. And I'm like, since they have to have kind of a crappy theater room, I'm going to make a cool door. And my idea in my head was I'll make a ticket booth that they could hand little tickets through. They could just open it up. It looked like, remember that one you'd kind of get your fortune told?
yeah,
Hexagon style deal. And I thought, well, they could open the door in the back and just slide the ticket through the door and then open the door. And it was a ticket booth door because my room had no space. It would
yeah,
be a double purpose deal. So then I'm like looking on Pinterest and coming up with these things. There was nothing. And then I thought, well, I'm not a finished carpenter at all, or a cabinet maker, excuse me. And so I messed up with this thing and it turned out like crap. And I was using like three hinges and piano hinges, and the weight of that door just kept ripping the side of the door. The hinges on the side are, You see a lot of hidden door companies like this, by the way, that are building using different hinges like that, or they're recommending that. Stay away from it. I don't care if we build your door or not, it fails. Most other hidden door hardware, if not all, isn't built like we have. We built 200,000 plus units. We know how they work. So I believe in the right people. If you want me to give you instructions so you can build your own, I'll do it, but don't waste your time. So anyhow, this was my problem. I created the hardware. Again, I used a backhoe bucket as my design concept. Like there's some backhoe buckets or trackhoe buckets, excuse me, that have a pivoting angle of attack, so you can do a quick release and change the pin angle, and then you can go in and attack the excavation component at a different angle. So I'm like, well, what if I did that and I just put a pin top and bottom? It didn't go all the way through. I just did the hinge points measured exactly the same. I could make it in swing, out swing, left, right, center mounted. I could do anything I wanted on the door, and then I'm carrying the weight from the right place at the top and the bottom of the door, and not on the side of the door that's just going to rip the heavy weight of the bookcase off.
Yeah.
So me and my brilliant self, instead of spending there was a Rixon hinge that's a lot like that. And I thought but they had to be mortised in, so basically cut into the cabinetry, and I don't know how to do that. So I'm like, I'm going to make a flush mounted one that just screws on the top, surface mounted. So I, in my infinite wisdom, decided to create this new hinge, and then I'm spending $5,000 to get it patented and getting a design engineer in the middle, all while doing fire. So of course I had to work some more hours to pay for that too.
Right.
And we got through it. And actually, that was cool. And it worked like a champ, honestly. And I thought, this is win number one. But when I knew I was onto something is the first time it really got online. And keep in mind, this is 2012, 13. Internet's still not like what it is today. It is internet, and it's fairly fast, and websites okay. But all of a sudden, people started buying my hinges, and I sold like 30 grand in 13 in hinges for 140 bucks. But then Rockler picked us up, which was like the woodworking dream guy, the home woodworkers magazine.
Yeah.
I'm like, holy crap. And they started selling a ton of it. I'm like, I think we're onto something. But what I did realize is I couldn't get that into Home Depot. We had to create the hidden door hardware category. There was no category. And then when everybody said, hey, I don't want the hardware, I wanted the door. And so I'm like, okay, well, I need to hire a cabinet guy. And luckily enough, that's a long story, but I found a cabinet guy in Idaho. He helped me create the initial Murphy door. And the work was slow post the collapse of the economy. And they were still trying to put their stuff together, helped
Yeah.
me create it. And we started getting more and more calls. I did the trade show in Vegas, and this little architectural lady, this was my breakthrough moment. She
Who's
was like from Architectural Digest,
yeah.
then a cane. She's like, and it's just one door. Now, keep in mind, I have one door. I'm like, you want a Murphy door? And you got these ginormous booths. Any of you that have been to the International Builder Show, like ours now is insane. I spent $1 million for 3 days. Like it's a different booth, right?
Yeah.
So I'm opening and closing, and I had these little trifold brochures. I'm like, buy you a Murphy door, buy you a Murphy door. And everybody says, I want one for me, but I wouldn't supply it in my store. And this lady goes, hey, sweetheart, you need to, can I tell you something? I love what you're doing, but you're selling kind of panic room idea. That was my pitch at the time. And she goes, you realize that not even 1% of the world needs a panic room, but more than 99% of the world needs space.
Yeah.
So quit worrying about what you're trying to hide and show off the big piece of cabinet furniture that you're showing in front, and teach them how that makes space and is usable like a door.
Yeah.
So I wish I could say that was my creative mind, but it was a little lady with a cane. Remember your point, listen to people, don't
That's
act
right.
like you know everything.
Yeah.
And I took this idea of like hidden rooms and gun rooms and panic rooms and cool stuff and knocked my like dick in the dirt, pardon the French. But I was like, now I'm back in the shed business talking about storage in a wall. Like I was out of the shed business. I wanted freaking John Wick cool stuff.
Yeah.
Here we are back to storage. Well, guess what makes money, folks?
Story.
Storage. So anyway, and that was the kind of, once I transitioned, I did some bad moves. So I went to from Hidden Door Solutions to Creative Home Solutions. That was a bad move. Hidden Doors were searched way more than Creative Home Store Solutions. So
Yeah.
if you're looking for SEO stuff, just FYI, lesson one, lesson two, offering stuff and taught the solution using your keywords.
Yep. Yeah.
So, and then it went from there to Home Depot in 2016, still working for Roy City Fire at the time. And they said, hey, it's not, this was another keyword that really made me think I was onto something. This beautiful merchant at Home Depot was Lindsay Chasen. And she was with another beautiful lady named Amber Hall, beautiful people. They came up and they said, "Hey, this is a really brilliant idea." I think at the time I had a 20 by 20 booth, then like 8 doors or something. And they're like, the question is not if every home in America will have a Murphy door. It's that if Murphy door will be the one that puts all the doors into all the homes in America.
Hmm.
And that was this transitional phase that I knew I had something. If Home Depot's merchants that are female are
Yep.
saying the question isn't that everybody will get one, the question is if I'm the one to do it. So
Amazing.
then it turned into this competitive challenge. My like, okay, I've got to pivot this into I'm going to beat that.
Yeah.
It's going to be me. It's going to be creative. And then we start developing these design teams and people inside internal engineers, mechanical engineers, design engineers, structural engineers, manufacturing engineers, designers to come and build this force that makes it so it's appealing to everyone.
I love it. So, last thing, I know you got to get running, but for you, in just as you've scaled, right? You're in a different season and phase now. How have you, you know, really enabled the people on the team and, encourage them to dive in? Because I think, you mentioned earlier, hey, it used to be my way or the highway, and now it's more of a team atmosphere where, hey, I'm entrusting you to be a rock star in your world, and that allows me to be a rock star in my world. And there's more of a cohesion there. So, how for you as a business owner have you kind of made that pivot and that switch, and what have you done to strategically make people feel like, yeah, this is mine. I am owning it.
So this is a really creative, it's kind of a long piece. It's not terribly long, but so I'm a firefighter, right?
Yeah.
And my captains, so my partner was Cody Draheim, and the old captain was Von Draheim. And he's working at the fire station. He retires. He's then goes assemble stuff at Lowe's. And I needed to build this manufacturing facility to put the 4, 6, or 8 doors a week together that we were building at the time. And I'm working on the fire truck, taking orders with lights and sirens going, doing CPR, taking orders. Like, what can I do? You got a door coming? Yeah, hold on. Let me finish doing mouth to mouth. I'll call you right back when I'm done. I mean, literally, true fact. And I gave him a credit card limit of like, you can give credits because we were screwing up a lot. Like when you first start building indoors, just FYI, I would never buy from a new company ever because our first 1,000 doors were a mess.
Mm.
And thank goodness our financial wherewithal is deep and we can fix them all. We've warranted so many of our first doors. Well, I feel bad for all those clients. Thank you all for putting up with this. We learned. But he called me up. He's like, dude, you got to change this limit from $250. Like, I've got this every time. I'm having to make him wait for 2, 3 days till you're off work till I can get back to him. I'm like, dude, that $250 to me is like 1/3 of my paycheck.
Right.
I
Yeah.
can't give that permission. And he's like, dude, you got to trust people. You're never going to get anywhere.
Mm.
And so he's like, just give me the power. I'm like, what do you want? He said, one more zero. I'm like, whoa. You want me to give you power to credit people back $2,500, bro? Like that's 1,000 more than I make a month.
Right.
He's like, trust me. And I'm like, okay. That was scary, dude. That was the
Yeah.
scariest thing ever. I was on pins and needles forever. So there was a couple other things that happened. One, the next thing is we use this saying a lot at work. I don't care what you do what you say.
Yeah.
I don't even care if it's wrong. We can always fix the wrong. Don't lie to people. If you lied, it's a big problem. But you go fix that. Even if I'm giving away a free door or you said you do this, you just do that. And then we'll work it out with you. You're not going to get fired as long as you own it and we take some equity for it. We learn, but you're going to get a reprimand and we're going to keep track of it.
Yep.
And then the other piece that I've done since the very beginning, because I hated the fact that people and other companies, because I'm a very driven person, I want to know what kind of impact I make to a company.
Yeah.
I really want to know. I want to know, am I lifting where I stand? Am I dead weight? When's a good time to ask for a raise? Like, I really feel like I want to know. And it's always like this shady game. Hey, Phil, bro, like I've been working really, really hard, doing really, really good. Can I have a raise? And you're like, you're not doing that good.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm like, but I feel like I am. Like I'm here early and late and no one else is. I'm like, yeah, but you're slow. And so it's like, I don't want to make this, subjective. It needs to be factual. Like we need to go through this thing and know. So every single day since we started, we have full financial disclosure to every employee in the company.
Amazing.
Everybody knows what we've made. Everybody knows what we spent. Everybody knows how much they produced. Everybody knows how much we sold. Everybody knows how much bills we paid. Everybody knows how much warranty's been done. And if they come up and like, hey, Phil, bro, like, can I have a raise? And you're like, did you see yesterday's financials? Is this the best time to ask for that?
Yeah.
Right. So
And
that's
I'm
how,
sure for you as a business owner, there's that extra level of accountability, right? Like, hey, I'm making a decision and everyone's going to see that. Now I have to trust myself and what that means, but I
that's
also have to realize that it's not I'm making all the decisions behind, this black curtain and then oh, hey, so suddenly they find out
right.
it's out there.
Like for my directors, I give them 10% of my EBITDA,
Mm, amazing.
right? So they get 10% EBITDA. They get EBITDA growth, they get 10% of that,
Yeah,
which is a big difference than 10% of net. Just so you
absolutely.
guys know that know where you have a 10% EBITDA play. Well, then we also have profit sharing inside the company. So here's the irony. So how we package this all up, and this might step one step above some people that are trying to get to the $1 million or 10 million, and bless you as you get there. But there's this step. So we're going 10% of EBITDA, and then my employees get 10% of net, right? And so their impact.
Yeah.
Well, here's the problem. They don't get anything on the directors or executive sides if they don't hit my goal.
Mm,
So they have to manage. So, and by the way,
yeah.
when we onboard a new EBITDA or new executive, they get 10% of what the growth variance is. So the floor is whatever they came in at,
Yep.
they get the growth variance.
Great.
So you can't sacrifice my EBITDA
Yep.
or, or you can't sacrifice my growth for EBITDA.
Yeah.
Growth is first. EBITDA is what you're going to get incentivized on.
Yep.
Net is what the team gets incentivized on, right?
Yeah.
So can you see the power in that dynamic?
Absolutely.
You can't move goal. It doesn't take goal is precedence over EBITDA. That doesn't win. This does. EBITDA is where you get paid extra net, which matters to these guys down below you that are feeding on the bottom of what is supposed hierarchical thing.
Yep.
Um, if you make bad decisions and has no net margin, but you still get an EBITDA lift, you can have some people wanting to kick your butt.
Yep.
So they have to be so mathematical because no one wants to hurt the people below them. They don't hurt so bad if they cost the boss money.
Yep.
So I just pace mine's a goal game. Give me that goal. Yours
Yep.
is an EBITDA game. Get yourself an EBITDA. Theirs below you is a net game. So they're like, oh, we have to make the boss happy on the goal line.
Yep.
Dang, we need to make ourselves happy on EBITDA.
Yep.
Shoot, we stole it from the bottom guys.
Yeah.
It's a bugger. And I'll tell you what, it's magic.
I love that.
It's truly magic.
I love it. Well, Jeremy, I want to say thanks so much for sharing your journey and all the amazing things that you've done thus far. And I'm excited to continue to watch the journey. And we'll probably be doing this again in 2 years, and we'll be talking about
Amen.
all the growth and new lessons that you've learned. And just keep being an amazing leader. And thank you again for sharing your journey.
Hey, thank you for giving me the opportunity to keep an eye out. There's so much coming down the line for Murphy Door. We're working with every big, huge person you know. There's some series from some of the most popular entertainers. We have lines coming out with their brands on it. We have some awesome collaborations. We've been involved in some awesome movies and some sets. And the one thing I want you guys to keep your eyes out for is these new Murphy Door Experience Centers. They're going to be a fully immersive experience center instead of showrooms. It's like walking into a Haida room or a John Wick experience. They'll be interactively, truly every room. The door you're wanting to see will be involved in an actual experience. So think of it, and we'd love to see it. We're doing our first one in Ogden, and then they'll start showing up around malls around the country. So we hope you look for that. And again, Phil, thank you so much for involving me and inviting me to participate.
Absolutely. Everyone go follow Jeremy Barker and then also follow Murphy Doors. Thanks so much.
Appreciate you guys. Thank you. Have a great day.